fools hurt, and Jesus wept.
The Broncos are now on the clock. The Vikings are now on the clock. The Seahawks are now on the clock. The Patriots are now on the clock. The 49ers are now on the clock.
I buy like 23. Won't fall again and I put that on me. Yeah, I feel
The Bengals are now on the clock.
That's why I had to put my wrist on freeze.
The Bengals are now on the clock.
Designer on me, this that new Chanel. Did that splash, did that drill. Yeah, champion, yeah, we here. Yeah, this the winning team. 6 rings with a pinky ring. Everybody used to pick at me, now I'm the one that they picking. Snakes out, they hit scene, but I can't hear it when the crowd screams. Still balling like an offspring. This for all the ones that doubted me. Gotta lose once to be a true winner. Only want the hunters with the blues in it. Eating blood across it where the blood dinner. Juice stay turned like, you know. I've been through that water like Olympic swimmers. Only bread and
The
butter.
49ers are now on the clock.
To the dream is bigger, only want the gold, we don't need the silver. Gotta be number 1, number 2 never count. Used to have bubble guts competition, now point them out. Making my babies proud, wanna cop my mama a house. Coming straight out the south, gotta know juice to end the drought. Yeah, I buy like 23. Won't fall again and I put that on me. Yeah, I feel the way
The Patriots are now on the clock.
That's why I had to put my wrist on freeze. Coming for the win, can't take another L. Designer on me, this that new Chanel. Did that splash, did that drill. Yeah, champion, yeah, we here.
The Seahawks are now on the clock.
I do not feel ashamed. I'm a dog, I'm a beast, and I cannot be tamed. I don't do it for fame, it's the love for the game. I go in like I'm trained. I'm prepared for the rain, they amazed. I ain't brave from the sticks and stones they threw. Anything that you can do, I can do it better than you. No matter what I do, achieve, still got something to prove. I spent the check on the diamond cross, but still ain't paid my dues. Gotta be number 1, number 2 never count. Used to have bubble.
The Vikings are now on the clock. The Broncos are now on the clock.
Coming straight out the south, gotta know juice to end the drought. Yeah, I buy like 23.
The Titans are now on the clock.
I put that on me. Yeah, I feel the way my heart all on my sleeve. Yeah, that's why I had to put my wrist on freeze. Coming for the win, can't take another L.
The Eagles are now on the clock.
Designer on me, this that new Chanel. Did that splash, did that drill. Yeah, champion, yeah, we here.
The Bills are now on the clock.
They don't know my name, I get through the pain. Taste sweet on my face like it's lemonade. Tie me up in chains, I get through the pain. Taste sweet on my face like it's lemonade.
The Ravens are now on the clock.
Let go.
But I know I got an antidote to retain some kind of self-control. Look inside my head through a telescope. You erase all the calls from a telephone. No sense of smile, maybe tell a joke. Holding back your tears, singing minimal syllables. Yo, look at me, out the asylum. Was a fate or mistake, cause the time ain't up. Yeah, the parts of my mind don't get much love. If you want in my head, come and call me up. You look like a twisted Robin Hood. Yeah, you take from the rich and the poor and us. Wearing diamond shoes while you walk your pugs in a town you create where there ain't no love.
The Lions are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock.
They don't know my name. I get through the pain. Taste it on my face like it's lemonade. Tie me up in chains. I get through the pain. Taste it on my face like it's lemonade.
Stop taking, but still got a reflux. I drip out from the socket to a teacup. Drink up inside. Look when they peep us. Choose us in the belly of the beast, but outside there's a war
The
going
Browns
on.
are now on the clock.
Hawks see the red dawn horizon. Blind yet I'm rising. Abiding by laws of attraction. My thoughts still rising. Thinking, what type of knowledge don't sink in? Life gives you limits and my only thought is drinking. Thirsty, will I be alive or dead before 30? That's all that concerns me early. Lemonade quenching
The
my
Giants
rage
are now on the clock. The Raiders are now on the clock.
Put me in the water for the save.
They don't know my name. I get through the pain. Taste it on my face like it's lemonade. Tie me up in chains. I get through the pain. Taste it on my face like it's lemonade.
The Packers are now on the clock.
They don't know my name.
The Chiefs are now on the clock.
Taste it on my face like it's lemonade. Tie me up in chains. I get through the pain. Taste it on my face.
The Falcons are now on the clock. The Panthers are now on the clock.
She-Rag got me.
Hit boy on the beat, so you gotta go berserk.
Okay. Sometimes you need a friend, not the ones that just show up and don't put nothing in. You know the ones that live
The
their
Jaguars
hand and
are now
wanna
on the
see you
clock.
win. When you come up on that lick, make sure you cut them in. And then, sometimes you need a foe, one to keep your eyes open, keep you on
The
your toes.
Colts
You
are
know
now on the
ones that
clock.
wanna keep you where you've been before. But I can't go, no I can't go. And whoa, sometimes I need a check, not the sneakers, but the ones that make you watch your step. Your chain, name, how about your respect? Give them more than what I get, expecting nothing back. In fact, you know, I sat down with my accountant. He said I got good news and I got bad news.
The Steelers are now on the clock.
You made a lot. I said, what's the bad news? The bad news is you spent more. Okay. Look, sometimes you need the faith. Sometimes you need to know your worth. Sometimes you need to wait. Shoot like the golden boy, but they from the bay. You can't negotiate with Drake. You gon' have to pay. But wait, jugging on the main stage.
The Chargers are now on the clock.
Baby, sometimes I need a vacate, meditate, hydrate, protect my energy before engagement.
Grew up having nothing, you're labeled impatient. But once the boss made it, you're labeled amazing. Meticulous with words, such a force of nature. I don't wanna seem absurd, but that boy's a gangster. Focusing on me, way from Tel Aviv. Barbados with the hustle pockets, LIDs.
The Dolphins are now on the clock.
Destinations, all I wanna see. Oceanfront residences, 3 different ones a week. Cause I deserve that. It's time to learn that. Mess around
The
and put that
Buccaneers
thing
are now
where
on
your
the clock.
permit. 6 figures every year, yeah, I earn that. At the front of this line is where my turn at.
Sometimes you need a friend, not the ones that just show up and don't put nothing in. You know the ones that lend their hand and want to see you win. When you come up on that lick, make sure you cut them in. And
The
then,
Saints are now on the clock.
sometimes you need a foe. Oh. Men gon' lie, women gon' lie. You're looking for the truth and the numbers don't hide. Looking for the root of all evil.
Cowboys are now on the clock.
With your eyes. Everybody claim to be great at small times, but they never spend a day in the rain in the front line. No lie. Stop playing on my phone line. Pull up in the space coupe with the roof optional. Wonder why they follow suit. I've been groomed from the
The Saints are now on the clock.
With some running tennis shoes, faster than the speeding bullet.
The Buccaneers are now on the clock. The Dolphins are now on the clock.
Automatic is a habit, you should know it's automated. I've been getting to it, I ain't noticed y'all was hating. Brand new chick, she don't know the occupation. I just wanna know that I can hold a conversation. Oof, I don't know what y'all debating. I've been waiting for you, now I'm running out of patience. Running up a check,
The Chargers are now on the clock.
Check and put 100 out of savings in. I can tell now that you ain't talking about nothing. I'ma need something I can calm down from. I'm gonna pull it with the bar
The
down
Steelers are now on the clock.
Down once. Try and tell me what you know about me. You don't know nothing, keep it real with me. She said she ain't trying to deal with me. Okay, cool, you can sell that seat. I'm just hoping she don't fail. Cause when she do, I don't know what I'ma do. All that I heard that y'all was talking, it was comical. Pull up in your city for the evening, what you trying to do? Cause I'm open to it. I know that you missing, but you gon' get through it. I can help with it if you need that.
The Jaguars are now on the clock.
I don't really listen to the feedback now. Told me that she good, she don't need Jack now. I'm real proud.
The Panthers are now on the clock.
Place that you at today. I couldn't tell you to you straight, I gotta estimate. I wonder if I ought to go here with the best to say. Now go ahead, get me out of here, I couldn't last a day. I got the city talking about me like I passed away. Automatic is a habit, you should know it's automated. I've been getting to it, I ain't noticed y'all was hating. Brand new chick, she don't know the occupation. I just wanna know that I can hold a conversation. Oof, I don't know what y'all debating. I've been waiting for you, now I'm running out of patience. Running up a check, trying to run an operation. Went broke in the check and
The
put a
Falcons are now on the clock.
Now that you ain't talking about nothing. I'ma need something I can calm down from. I'm gonna pull it with the bar down one. 6 months in, I ain't once. Try and tell me what you know about me. You don't know nothing, keep it real with me. She said she ain't trying to deal with me. Okay, cool, you can sell that seat. Ooh, and she felt intrigued. Trying to the LMPD. Go and get your self-esteem.
The Chiefs are now on the clock.
So much we got synced up. Pulled up in the dinged up whip. This ain't Pepto Biz, what this pink stuff is. Gonna tell me. Yeah, you heard me, you ain't felt me. I've been moving, I've been shaking, go and hit me on the celly. Try to sell me on something while I hold it compelling. Ever since I've been gone like
The Packers are now on the clock.
About this and that. I ain't chatting with you, we ain't going tit for tat. Trying to tell me how to get in the bag. We're going to get in the bag, I'm about to get in it.
The Raiders are now on the clock.
I've been getting to it, I ain't noticed y'all was hating. Brand new chick, she don't know the occupation. I just wanna know that I can hold a conversation. Oof, I don't know what y'all debating.
The Giants are now on the clock.
Running up a check, try and run an operation. Went broke in the check and put 100 out of savings.
The Browns are now on the clock.
I'ma need something I can calm down from. I'm gonna pull it with the bar down one. 6 months in, I ain't once. Try and tell me what you know about me. You don't know nothing, keep it
The
real with
Cardinals
me.
are now
She
on the
said
clock.
She ain't trying to deal with me. Okay, cool, you can sell that seat.
The Lions are now on the clock. The Rams are now on the clock. The Ravens are now on the clock. The Bills are now on the clock. The Eagles are now on the clock.
Like my style, don't you? Nights like this, I wish I was with you. On my turf, roll out the Henry Rux. She like when I hit the receiver. Friend hop in, this is a four-seater.
The Titans are now on the clock.
Major leaguer, no fatigue. We don't get no handout, we don't get no mega.
The Broncos are now on the clock.
Tryna work, you need a breather. I need a break. Won't you get down with me, down with me, down with me? Oh, you down with me, down with me, down with me. Won't you get down with me, down with me, down with me? Oh, you down with me, down with me. Hold on. Won't you get down with me, down with me?
The Vikings are now on the clock.
Tell me who you talking to. Roll up that Sinatra, fly la mama to the moon. She asked me what's my life path. Told her 55 south to the cash. So many couches I crashed. Shout out South Tree and shout classic.
The Patriots are now on the clock. The 49ers are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock. The 49ers are now on the clock.
I can't give up about what they say. They've been searching for that thing to get them higher. You can't catch my drift, can't catch my wave.
Damn Kane.
The Patriots are now on the clock.
Trying to keep the people stable the way I feel. I might it all up the way you feel. You might do it for the buck. All black, born to be a rebel. After this, I might go and water down the devil. Listen to everything around me, I can't see. You picked a dozen roses and left them in Galilee rolling thunder. Don't hear my cry, don't let alibis pass you. I finally starting to realize, never give up and coast. I can't watch TV, it's all a lot. Tired of trying, go ahead and fly. Everybody want a straight answer, but media keep us blind. A good heart is not hard to find.
The Seahawks are now on the clock.
Infrastructure, I don't got time. I could it's all to we're talking about you, about to protecting the sons and daughters from political manslaughter.
Someone put me out cause I'm on fire. I can't give up about what they say. They've been searching for that thing to get them higher. You can't catch my drift, can't catch my wave.
The Vikings are now on the clock.
Never play by the rules, guess I'm paying my dues. They gon' try to intrude, poison the multitude. They be quick to accuse.
The Broncos are now on the clock.
You gon' pay the price based off the item you choose. Ties in the culture, hit you with them Ultra. I knew you was a vulture. Holy Ghost get the ushers. No.
The Titans are now on the clock.
Then I was cluttered, doing this so subtle, falling out through the rubble.
The Eagles are now on the clock.
Gonna get something in the middle, gotta stay hunting. Why the rush left with nothing? 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 Agitated illusion, only built for confusion.
The Bills are now on the clock.
Think I know the solution, maybe not should I do it? Just put it in the music, just put it in the music.
Someone put me out cause I'm on fire. I can't give up about what they say. They've been searching for that thing to get them higher. You can't catch my drift, can't catch my wave. You'll burn out if you
The Ravens are now on the clock.
Can you feel it rushing through your veins? Though you make it out that you desire.
The Lions are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock. The Browns are now on the clock. The Giants are now on the clock.
Hey yo, yeah, Nike check. I done made about $1 million and I'm only 19. Icy water dripping on a white tee. And shorty got a man, but she saying wife me. I got checks coming in like a pair of Nikes. If I like it, then you know I'm finna get it. Get the bag and then I flip it, watch me do it. All them on my wrist going stupid. Tryna put them on, but they never do it. They like, hold up, wait a minute, like don't make sense, don't really get it. I'm steady getting to the chicken, that tasty finger licking chicken. I mean, I'm getting to the good guap. Keep a rack in my socks. Diamonds cost me a lot, but Nike check up all of my socks. Hey yo, Nike check, t-shirt check, sneakers.
The Packers are now on the clock.
Check, hoodie check, shorts check, Nike check. I done made about $1 million and I'm only 19.
The Falcons are now on the clock.
And shorty got a man, but she saying wife me. I got checks coming in like a pair of Nikes. If I like it, then you know I'm finna get it. Get the bag and then I flip it, watch me do it. All them on my wrist going stupid.
The Panthers are now on the clock.
But they never do it. Throwing up sky high while I'm rocking Air Force. And she just wanna ride, shorty bad and gorgeous. She was rocking stripes, said it's alright. Then I cut her off, shorty stepped on my off-whites. Okay, now wait. Gotta get the bag and racks every day. Don't tell me to relax, I can't, I'ma say. Got a new Prestos and a J's in a way. Got a new British watch, but it don't take time. Might pull up on a hop if it talks too hot. And you wanna play ball, hit a 3-point shot. Well, this my court, got a block on lock. I done made about $1 million and I'm only 19. Icy water dripping on a white tee. And shorty got a man, but she saying wife me. I got checks coming in like a pair of Nikes. If I like it, then you know I'm finna get it. Hit the bag and then I flip
The
it.
Jaguars are now on the clock.
My wrist going stupid. Tryna put them on, but they never do
The
it.
Colts are now on the clock.
Don't make sense, don't really get it. I'm steady getting to the chicken. That tasty finger licking chicken. I mean, I'm getting to the good guap. Keep a rack in my socks. Diamonds cost me a lot. Nike check up all of my socks. Hey yo, Nike check.
The Steelers are now on the clock. The Chargers are now on the clock.
Can I kick it? Yeah. Don't ask me a thing. How I got her, how I did it. Yeah. Spend the whole half, had a blast. Can I kick it? Even with a sprain, pain. Can I kick it?
The Dolphins are now on the clock.
Can I kick it? Things ain't been the same. Things have changed. Can I kick it? People acting different, so I ask. Can I?
Hey, could count on my power and look at my dogs. Way back then, could claim what you saw, but you weren't with us. The higher the climb, the harder the fall, but how did you get up? I done got rich and went broke, then got rich again, just a little hiccup. I done been ballin' this pickup. Remember me being so bummy and being so hungry, I had to eat gristle. How did you let it go miss?
The Buccaneers are now on the clock.
One of the functions we caught a little rhythm, she caught up a friend, they kissed and we dipped it, and that's how we kicked it.
Let me explain what I did. Can I kick it? Hold on. Yeah, I got some rings and a range. Can I kick it? Yeah. Don't ask me a thing. How I got her, how I did it. Yeah. Spend the whole half, had a blast. Can I kick it? Even with a sprain, pain. Can I kick it? Just the flex I want.
The Saints are now on the clock.
Things ain't been the same.
The Cowboys are now on the clock.
People acting different, so I asked. Can I? Before I went live, they ain't know what I was. Ain't no one alive that could do what I does. Wait. Need a light here just to catch my buzz. Need Sprite here just to catch my cup. Now they don't really talk about
The Saints are now on the clock.
Honestly, they ain't never seen too much. What's love to a guy with a bag? What's heart to a guy with some cash? What's pain to a guy that's mad? Said. What's broke to a guy with a mask?
The Buccaneers are now on the clock.
I just wanna kick it, that's all I ask. Like, let me explain what I did. Can I kick it? Hold on. Yeah, I got some rings and a range. Can I kick it? Yeah. Don't ask me a thing. How I got her, how I did it. Yeah. Spend the whole half, had a blast. Can I kick it? Even with a sprain, pain. Can I kick it? Just the flex, I went and bought a chain.
The Dolphins are now on the clock.
Things ain't been the same. Things have changed. Can I kick it? People acting different, so I ask. Can I?
The Chargers are now on the clock. The Steelers are now on the clock.
I heard a flare gun, I'm ready to race. No, I don't fear none, I'm stuck in my ways. They say I'm
The Jaguars are now on the clock.
Get this one and I'm
The
home.
Panthers are now on the clock.
I just take a sip, but it's spit. We on track for the win. Celebrate the win again. Celebrate the win again. Take a sip, but it's spit. We on track for the win. Celebrate the win again. Celebrate the win again. Yeah, the sun can't touch me. Got a brand new visor. Yeah, your friend's smart, but my bud's wiser. Yeah, get the job done like the equalizer. And I'ma grab another drink, 'cause tonight I'ma die like Michael Phelps. Hey, diving in this pool.
The Falcons are now on the clock.
I'm just telling you the truth. I heard a flare gun, I'm ready to race. No, I don't fear none, I'm stuck in my ways. They say I'm the chosen one, see it in my face. Get this one and I'm holding on, I can't be replaced. I just take a sip, but
The Chiefs are now on the clock. The Packers are now on the clock.
Take a sip, but it's spit. We on track for the win. Celebrate the win again. Celebrate the win again. Get it triumphant. Let's bump it. Don't mind me seizing the moment. Energy up, my body burning. My stomach keep up turning. Stop moving, I can't control it. On my last breath and I can't hold it. You gotta give it all I got. This for the ones that think I'm joking. This for real, for real. Lightweight bust off half of. Yeah, I'm sweating, babe. Must be
The Giants are now on the clock.
happy feels, but damn, I'm trying to find. Just say I got sex appeal. I think it's 'cause I wear a fire gun. I'm ready to race. No, I don't fear none. I'm stuck in my ways. They say I'm the chosen one, see it in my face. Get this one and I'm holding on. I can't be replaced. I just take a sip, but it's spit. We on track for the win. Celebrate the win again. Celebrate the win again. Take a sip, but it's spit. We on track for the win. Celebrate the win again. Celebrate the win.
The Cardinals are now on the clock.
Yeah, I use a dub, I'ma win, I won't lose with this. Yeah, I'ma act a fool with this. Yeah, I'ma act a fool with this. Yeah, I'ma act a fool with this. Turn the knob, camera assist, I'm incredible. Yeah, came for the dollars, call it vegetable. Then I did the dash, can I catch me, bro? Ooh,
The Lions are now on the clock.
Your whole team is no competition. Boy, I did it by myself, it's a solo mission. Running up the charts.
The Rams are now on the clock.
Turn the whole field to a schoolyard. Bunch of students.
The Ravens are now on the clock. The Bills are now on the clock.
Gas on them like I'm with the Cavalier. Show no love, got the confidence, no fear. I use a dub, I'ma win, I won't lose with this. Yeah, I'ma act a fool with this. Yeah, I'ma act a fool with this. Yeah, I'ma act a fool with this. Okay, yeah, then I hit that. Okay, yeah, then I hit that.
The Eagles are now on the clock. The Titans are now on the clock. The Broncos are now on the clock.
Since like 9-5, I've been eager for this. Talent on the rise, I'm consistent with this. Trophy is the prize, ain't no gimmicks with this. Okay, now what's left on them?
The Vikings are now on the clock. The Seahawks are now on the clock.
Gotta blame my faith, cause these odds ain't got nothing on them. I secure the safe for the cradle, I ain't dropping nothing. Only winning is exception, ain't no truce. Ain't no dub, ain't no L on my crew. Only winning is exception on my crew. Yeah, ain't no dub, ain't no L. I use a dub, I'ma win, I won't lose with this. Yeah, I'ma act a fool with this. Yeah, I'ma act a fool with this. Yeah, I'ma act a fool with this. Okay.
The Patriots are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock.
know no better, I'm on this every day. You cannot run with me, boy, I'm a heavyweight.
The 49ers are now on the clock.
And when it was on, they wanted me gone, boy, I'm here to stay. Stop calling me little bro, I got mileage on me. Walked in with the whole team and we riding on him. Yeah, more action and no talk, I went quiet on him. Walked in with the whole team and we riding on him.
I don't be with him, he's so basic. Boy, you the op and your bros hating. All of them fake, I see both faces. Scared of the whip, it's a ghost racing.
The Patriots are now on the clock.
I'm a slow pace it. They did not want me to go places. Foil plans like the gold place. And if we pulling up with the whole squad, I get ready to told y'all that you better
The Vikings are now on the clock.
When I walk in, I know y'all telling me nothing. I'm the man. Suck it if y'all in denial. I get the chip on them and I bust out the south side. Is that big of the guy? Boy, yo, stop it, quiet. If it's new, I done got it. See my jewels, shining, white.
The Broncos are now on the clock.
Private pilot, look at me, stylish, masterpiece.
The Titans are now on the clock.
I don't know no better, I'm on this every day. You cannot run with me, boy, I'm a heavyweight. Baby, I know what's coming, I could barely wait. And when it was on, they wanted me gone, boy, I'm here to stay. Stop calling me little bro, I got mileage on me. Walked in with the whole team and we riding on him. Yeah, more action.
The Eagles are now on the clock.
Walked in with the whole team and we riding on him.
Couple of bins up in my pocket. I don't want pulse to get wild nonsense. We got momentum, don't try to stop it. Diamonds are clearer than my conscience. I don't let bygones be bygones. That's when I'm honest. Penthouse building reach heaven's heights. Now that's what you call a God complex.
Remember the days I was down low when it was out cold, but I went out and got
The
it.
Bills are now on the clock.
When you look at my pocket.
Look at the flex. Whipping the Teslas. I'm a mess, but it's all a finesse.
The Rams are now on the clock.
I done got it. See my jewels, shining, white diamonds, Miley Cyrus, private jet, private pilot. Look at me, stylish, masterpiece, body, done.
Hey, I don't know no better, I'm on this every day. You cannot run with me, boy, I'm a heavyweight. Baby, I know what's coming, I could barely wait. And when it was on, they wanted me gone, boy, I'm here to stay. Stop calling me little bro, I got mileage on me. Walked in with the whole team and we riding on him. Yeah, more action and no talk, I went quiet.
The Lions are now on the clock.
With the whole team and we riding on him.
The Cardinals are now on the clock.
Flag on the play.
Yeah.
That's a flag on the play.
Yeah.
Flag on the play.
Hold up.
That's a flag on the play. Let's go.
Touchdown, I just scored a whole bucket. I just dropped the bag on the tag, ain't nothing. Make 'em throw a flag when I pass, come through stunning. Call me tired, girl, and hit the hole, then I ran.
The Browns are now on the clock.
Trying to get that second flag on the play. Hating from the side.
The Giants are now on the clock.
Like Julio with them Falcons, I just made a play. In the red zone, going strong. Watch me shake.
The Raiders are now on the clock.
With that rock, just like Tyreek Hill.
The Packers are now on the clock.
That's a whole field. He don't want no championship. Get him out of here. I just got a set like I run up in the backfield.
The Chiefs are now on the clock.
On a quarterback, shake and bake, make a play just like a quarterback. We ain't worrying about no formers, we ain't staying there. Running off the block, yeah, I'm something like a linebacker. I got juice like a Fanta, how you like it? I'm on purple, I'm on yellow like a Viking. All these plays that I'm catching, I done gone crazy. I do my thing, 6 range just like Tom Brady.
The Falcons are now on the clock.
I just scored a whole bucket. I just dropped the bag on the tag, ain't nothing. Make 'em throw a flag when I pass, come through stunning. Call me tired, girl, and hit the hole, then I ran it. Get money, you ain't trying to get that second flag on the play. Hating from the sideline, a flag on the play. Like Julio with them Falcons, I just made a play. In the red zone, going strong, watch me shake and bake. I'm in the field like a panther, I done up the standards. Like Michael Vick in
The Panthers are now on the clock. The Jaguars are now on the clock.
Bridgewater, Lamar Jackson, how I throw them Ravens across the border.
Hold up. You know I'm a touchdown with the sack. Run up the whole like a running back on the play. Intercept the pack like a safety. You boys ain't shake the play. That's a flag on the play. Let's go.
Touchdown, I just scored a whole bucket. I just dropped the bag on the tag, ain't nothing. Make 'em throw a flag when I pass, come through stunning. Call me tired, girl, and hit the hole, then I ran it. Get money, you ain't trying to get that second flag on the play. Hating from the sideline, a flag on the play. Like Julio with them Falcons, I just made a play. In the red
me shake and bake. Let's go.
Colts are now on the clock. The Chargers are now on the clock. The Dolphins are now on the clock. The Buccaneers are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock. The Cowboys are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock. The Buccaneers are now on the clock.
I remember sleeping with my ribs touched. I remember sleeping with my ribs touched. Now I get it to go. Now I get it to go. Now I get it to go. Now I get it to go.
Prime time over grind game over time's up.
The Dolphins are now on the clock. The Chargers are now on the clock.
Yourself if you want. I put my team on my back. Did what I could, what I had. Now I'll be all in my bag. Copy and paste with the swag.
Steelers are now on the clock.
All my winners on repeat. Take your L like a boss. Stand 10 toes on your feet.
The Jaguars are now on the
I ain't
clock.
set up for defeat. 4 Giottos on the truck. I had a dream and it stuck. Living my life cause we up. Looking back like where the love.
The Panthers are now on the clock.
But contrary to belief, loyalty runs deep. I keep my ear to the streets. Struggle turned me to a beast. I'm off the chain, I'm off the leash. But baby girl, I play for keeps. Told my brother
The Falcons are now on the
against all
clock.
odds like Willie Beeman. I've been grinding lately, this my season. Lord knows I'm trying to find my reason. Lay it out on the line, ain't no looking back. Giving my all with no strings attached. Can't roll no bottle, rolls through the cracks. Spotlight on you, but how you gon' act?
I remember sleeping with my ribs touched. I remember sleeping with my ribs.
The Chiefs are now on the clock. The Packers are now on the clock.
Ain't it crazy how them tables turn? You can fold or you can stand firm. I'm a real one, so I ain't concerned. I'm fully built for this life. I think I earned all my stripes. I don't believe all the hype. Get back on my feet and get right. Watch you work, watch him hate, watch him lurk. Can't relate, watch you skirt. Out the mud, out the
The
dirt,
Raiders
butter water,
are now
skin the
on the
murks,
clock.
At the gate, on site, red breed, red tight. Set the bar, take flight. Yeah, I've been grinding since a young and they told me my timing was coming. I've been hustling with no fun and forget all the fame, get the money. I'm out in LA where it's sunny.
The Giants are now on the clock.
Tell me the life we was living ain't funny, but you cannot take nothing
The
from me.
Browns are now on the clock.
My cousin, my brother, I'll show you. Way better than I can tell you. The type of dreams that they sell you. That's why I learned from my failures. Don't do the handouts or the favors. Told my brother I'ma get this paper. Was left behind, I'll see it later. To keep it real, you don't need to wait up. Lay it out on the line, ain't no looking back. Giving my all with no
The
strings
Cardinals are now on the clock.
Spotlight on you, but how you gon' act?
I remember sleeping with my ribs touched. I remember sleeping with my ribs touched. Now I get it to go. 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 I remember sleeping with my ribs touched. I remember sleeping with my ribs touched. Now I get it to go. 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 I remember sleeping.
The Lions are now on the clock.
I get it, go. I get it, go.
The Rams are now on the clock.
Oh, look at me. I bet you can't do it like me. Can't see me when I get on the ground. Game on, it's about to go down. A juke and shake it all up. My moves make them run them up. I'm lit so you know what's up. I got the party going.
The Ravens are now on the clock.
The ground is here. I'ma win anywhere. Hey, so shake it like you don't care. Shake it up everywhere. And I can bake cakes by the pound. Blow the whistle cause I love that sound. And we can just keep going round. I'm ready for another round. Go ahead, touch down like that. Go ahead, touch down like that. Go ahead, touch down.
The Eagles are now on the clock.
Go ahead, touch down like that. Hey, hey, go ahead, touch down like that. Go ahead,
The Titans are now on the clock.
Go ahead, touch down like that. Go ahead, touch down like that. Like
work the middle, work the middle, work the middle, work that, work that, work the middle, work the middle, work the middle, work that, work that, work the middle, work the middle, work the middle, work that, work that, work the middle, work the middle, work the middle, work that, work that.
Pan a camera to the middle of the dance floor. I think there's something going down. Shorty packing goods like a transport, and I ain't never seen something so round. How round? Round like a planet in orbit, round like a b-ball. 23 Jordan, dunking on default. Automatic forces attract me to females. I look this gorgeous. How did you even come in existence? Hey, or did you just appear out in an instance? You got me all driven, revving my pistons. I wonder if she like the stick shift. Ay, count a 4 and make a wish. I wish that shorty keep it lit. Cause if I shoot my shot, I won't miss. No backboard, gotta sound a light switch.
Go ahead, touch down like that. 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 Hey, hey, go ahead, touch down like that. 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 Like
work the middle, work the middle, work the middle, work that, work that, work the middle, work the middle, work the middle, work that.
The Broncos are now on the clock.
The middle, work the middle, work that, work that, work the middle, work the middle, work the middle, work that, work that.
The Vikings are now on the clock. The Seahawks are now on the clock.
Are you irresponsible without your money or not? Thought he had a plan, but we gon' foil his plot.
The Patriots are now on the clock.
Spin the block around just like the hands on the clock. Are you irresponsible without your money or not? Thought he had a plan, but we gon' foil his plot. Heard him sneaking in, so we just ran in the spot. And then we spin the block around just like the hands on the clock. Come like a bat of the hell, I dare you to cross like a reverend. And my energy paralyzed, I'm like I'm finger 11. Take a second, I'm finna send it like a parent a message. You the best, if it ain't me, then you need you a confession. You a mess. You ain't scary to me. I heard you was a leader, but that ain't apparent to me. Put dust on you, like cheetah, run up down the air in the scene. And I feel just like Vegeta Prince, and I'm an heir to the seat. I mean, for real. Touch the driver's soft, so I don't even grab the wheel. That's a lot on my chest, but it don't mean the man is stealing. Man, I'm walking with some money, man, I mean a couple mil. Ew, think you need a meal. You ain't even eating while I'm feasting in the field. That's why I'm always cheesing, cause I feel like Uncle Phil. And all those losers think the freshman ain't half the man as well. Are you irresponsible without your money or not? Thought he had a plan, but we gon' foil his plot. Heard him sneaking in, so we
The Bengals are now on the clock.
The
Bengals are now on the
Thought
clock.
he had a plan, but we gon' foil his plot. Heard him sneaking in, so we just ran in the spot. And then we spin the block around just like the hands on the clock. Just like the hands on the clock, I go back to back when I'm doing numbers. All the mad that I'm driving the bus, so they threw me under. Heard they mad, they don't wanna bust, so they boo each other. Think that they're the winning team, go losing, then they choose another. And that's okay, cause I'm competing with me, not you. I live with blessings like I can't stop sneezing, not you. I hate to break it, but me and myself top two. I blow away the competition like a bowl of hot soup.
The 49ers are now on the clock.
And I'm not bringing it back. I'm like a down QB. I put the pain in the past. And if you ever had a problem, promise I didn't ask. So it's 444 in the car, my dash. I shake a big, told them all, you ain't first, you last. Little boy, that's facts. I'ma grow that cash to my money. You know what?
Yo, who told us we ain't gonna win, man? Really? He's a bozo. Bozo. Really? Yeah.
The Patriots are now on the clock.
Came in and drop on the 10. Now we on top once again. Yeah.
Yeah. I had to tighten the plan. Yeah, I got it right in the end. Now we on top once again. I don't want it if it ain't love. If it ain't, get it away from me. Who you gon' jack if it ain't us? LABB to the bakery. Some mad that I came up. I know my granny gon' pray for me. It was just us in the vacancy. We had to get it from A to B. Wheels never felt like this. 2 seats in the hills, how I feel righteous. Blue sheets for the mills, but the deal priceless.
The Seahawks are now on the clock.
I might just double it up. Did it? Never enough.
The Vikings are now on the clock.
3 on the business, whole team got wins and the wheels still spinning. I told them what I told them. We did a lot for the wins. Came in a drop on the 10. Now we on top once again. Yeah. Hey, I had to tighten the plan. I got it right in the end. Now we on top. Got a spot and it's locked to the click all in. I got ops, if he drop, I just hit my dance. I was pop, they just watched, had to take my wins. They wouldn't let me in. I've been on 10 cents. Who really holding it down? I've been holding it down and I go it again and again. Who
the Titans are now on the clock.
Folding again and again. I'm in the what? I'm in the day. I'm doing 30 on 30 and up. You in the what? You in the way. Either you rolling or rolling the dust. You with us or what? Keep it running. We did a lot for the wins. Came in a drop on the 10. Now we on top once again. Yeah. I had to tighten the plan. I got it right in the end. Now we on top once again.
The Eagles are now on the clock.
We did a lot for the wins. Came in a drop on the 10. Now we on top once again. Yeah. Hey, I had to tighten the plan. I got it right in the end. Now we on 10.
The Bills are now on the clock.
That's a lot of it. 4 coops, 4 seasons, drop the top a bit. Bust down, but my wrist, time to talk a lot of. I got both my girls head to toe designer.
The Ravens are now on the clock.
Little bit. Let me feel myself a little bit. Little bit. You ain't talking big.
The Rams are now on the clock.
I can't hear the hate, got a lot of it. Take these bands to the bank, let them rot in it. So much ice on me, I wish I had 2 necks. I got homies that can sleep without 2. I got homies that can sleep without Gucci and Chanel, I got a lot of it. Walk up in the spot like, hey, what poppin' in? Gon' pop it for me cause I'm rich and poppin' in. Yeah, drip, little bit. Let me feel myself a little bit.
The Lions are now on the clock.
Little bit. You ain't talking big. Get out my way, little bit. She gon' put it on me.
The Cardinals are now on the clock.
4 coops, 4 seasons, drop the top a bit. Bust down, but my wrist, time to talk a lot of. I got both my girls head to toe designer. Drip, little bit. Let me feel myself a little bit. Little bit. You ain't talking big. Get out my way, little bit. West LA, that where you find me though. Cha-cha macha with it, rocking black clothes. Whipping around that Batmobile, ducking 5-0. If you step to me, then be prepared for smoke, little bro. Let me feel myself a little bit.
The Browns are now on the clock.
Slow this down a little bit. Drip, little bit.
The Giants are now on the clock.
Little bit. You ain't talking big. Get out my way, little bit.
The Raiders are now on the clock. The Packers are now on the clock.
Kick it and go. Step on, spin move, is on score. Sideline, a touchdown, I put on a show. I had to kick off and go. I had to kick off.
The Falcons are now on the clock.
Spin move, is on score. Sideline, a touchdown, I put on a show. I had to kick off and go.
The Panthers are now on the clock.
running it back, never a cap, out of the drought, watching me ball, as soon as I snap, hit of the pack, walk for the
Colts are now on the clock.
Talking my talk, walking my wall like I do.
The Chargers are now on the clock.
Turn it on, must be the shoes, must be the team, must be the camp, must be the crew. You need a win, who need a win, that's all we do. I've been a king and I've been about mine, never could doubt mine. They running the route, I leave them outline when I hit them.
Step on, spin move, in zone, scope. Sideline, a touchdown, I put on a show. I had to kick off and go. I had to kick off and go.
The Dolphins are now on the clock. The Buccaneers are now on the clock.
Putting it down for that. Time I was dying and out. Had to bring grinding back. Doing the drills and working the wheel where you're grinding at. You know what it be. Playing this here for the keeps. Had to make out with a feast. A family to feed. Third cold where the trophy should be. EA got me in the game now. Breed on with the game now. They're here with a lane now. My home second with a rain now.
The Saints are now on the clock.
Kind of drip is a skill.
The Cowboys are now on the clock.
Ain't nothing to the heel.
The Saints are now on the clock. The Buccaneers are now on the clock. The Dolphins are now on the clock. The Chargers are now on the clock. The Steelers are now on the clock. The Colts are now on the clock.
Say I done powered up, living at 10,000 and climbing. No, I've been bad it to them to get back from around me. My what it is. Really, I just came here to gotta see this more gonna be a boy. Thank the good Lord, I'm gifted. Overflowing with the sauce, I'm never holding back. I'm going in my coffin, middle finger.
The Jaguars are now on the clock.
This is second nature, all is automatic.
The Panthers are now on the clock. The Falcons are now on the clock. The Chiefs are now on the clock. Are now on the clock.
Animal instinct, you fools hurt. Jesus will.
The Giants are now on the clock. The Browns are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock. The Lions are now on the clock. The Rams are now on the clock. The Ravens are now on the clock. The Bills are now on the clock.
I buy like 23. Won't fall again and I put that on me. Yeah, I feel the way, my heart all on my sleeve. Yeah, that's why I had to put my wrist on freeze. Coming for the win, can't take another L. Designer on me, this that new Chanel. Did that splash, did that drill. Yeah, champion, yeah, we here. Yeah, this the winning teams. 6 rings with a pinky ring. Everybody used to pick at me, now I'm the one that they picking. Snakes out, they hit scene.
The Eagles are now on the clock.
Still balling like an offspring. This for all the ones that doubted me.
The Titans are now on the clock.
Only want the hunters with the blues in it. Eating blood across it where the blood dinner. Juice stay turned like, you know. I've been through that water like Olympic swimmers. Only bread and butter, what we ate for dinner. So I had to dream it till the dream is bigger. Only want the gold, we don't need the silver.
The Broncos are now on the clock.
Two never count. Used to have bubble guts competition, now point them out. Making my babies proud, wanna cop my mama a house. Coming straight out the south, gotta know juice to end the drought. Yeah, I buy like 23. Won't fall again and I put that on me. Yeah, I feel the way, my heart all on my sleeve. Yeah, that's why I had to put my
The Vikings are now on the clock.
Come for the win, can't take another L. Designer on me, this that new Chanel. Did that splash, did that drill. Yeah, champion, yeah, we here. Reaching my goals, I do not feel ashamed. I'm a dog, I'm a beast.
The Seahawks are now on the clock.
I don't do it for fame, it's the love for the game. I go in like I'm trained. I'm prepared for the rain, they amazed. I ain't break from the sticks and stones they threw. Anything that you can do, I can do it better than you. No matter what I do, achieve, still got something to prove. I spent the check on the diamond cross, but still ain't paid my dues. Gotta be number 1, number 2 never count.
The Patriots are now on the clock.
Now point them out. Making my babies proud, wanna cop my mama a house. Coming straight out the south, gotta know juice to end the drought. Yeah, I buy like 23. Won't fall again.
The 49ers are now on the clock.
Yeah, I feel the way, my heart all on my sleeve. Yeah, that's why I had to put my wrist on freeze. Coming for the win, can't take another L. Designer on me, this that new Chanel. Did that splash, did that drill. Yeah, champion, yeah, we here.
They don't know my name. I get through the pain.
The Bengals are now on the clock.
Lemonade. Tie me up in chains. I get through the pain. Taste sweet on my face like it's lemonade.
They say fall and you let go, but I know I got
The Bengals are now on the clock.
some kind of self-control. Look inside my head through a telescope. You were raised so the calls from a telephone. No sense of smile, maybe tell a joke. Holding back your tears, singing minimal syllables. Yeah, look at me, out of the asylum. Was a fate or mistake, cause the time ain't up. Yeah, the parts of my mind don't get much love. If you want in my head, come and call me up. You look like a twisted Robin Hood. Yeah, you take from the rich and the poor and us. Wearing diamond shoes where you walk your pugs in a town you create where there ain't no love. Where do I go? Where do I know?
The 49ers are now on the clock.
They don't know my name. I get through the pain. Taste sweet on my face like it's lemonade. Tie me up in chains. I get through the pain. Taste sweet on my face like it's lemonade.
Stop taking, but still got a reflux. Eyes drip out from the socket to a teacup. Drink up inside, look when they peep us. She's us in the belly of the beach, but outside there's a war going on your front lawn. Black Hawk see the red dawn horizon. Blind yet I'm rising.
The Patriots are now on the clock.
My thoughts still rising. Thinking, what type of knowledge gon' sink in? Life gives you lemons and my only thought is drinking. Thirsty, will I be alive or dead before 30? That's all that concerns me early. Lemonade quenching my inner rage when it takes center stage way before they pour it on my grave. Minute Maid, let it set my soul ablaze on each and every way. Put me in the water.
The Vikings are now on the clock. The Broncos are now on the clock.
On my face like it's lemonade. Tie me up and chains. I get through the pain. Taste sweet on my face like it's lemonade. They don't know my name.
The Titans are now on the clock.
On my face like it's lemonade. Tie me up in chains. I get through the pain. Taste sweet on my face like it's lemonade.
The Eagles are now on the clock. The Bills are now on the clock. The Ravens are now on the clock.
She-Rag got me.
The Lions are now on the clock.
Hit boy on the beat, so you gotta go berserk.
Okay. Sometimes you need a friend, not the ones that just show up and don't
The
put nothing
Cardinals
in.
are now on the
You know
clock.
the ones that lend their hand and want to see you win. When you come up on that lick, make sure you cut them in. And then, sometimes you need a foe, one to keep your eyes open, keep you on your toes. You know the ones that want to keep you where you've been before. But I can't go, no, I can't go. And whoa, sometimes I need a check. Not the sneakers, but the ones that make you watch your step. You change name, how about your respect? Give them more than what I get, expecting nothing back. In fact, you know, I sat down with my accountant. He said, I got good news and I got bad news. I said, what's the good news? He said, the good news
The
is you got a
Browns
lot.
are now on
I
the
said,
clock.
What's the bad news? The bad news is you spend more. Okay.
The Giants are now on the clock.
Sometimes you need the faith. Sometimes you need to know your worth. Sometimes you
The
need
Raiders
to wait.
are now on the clock.
Like the golden boy, but they from the bay. You can't negotiate with Drake. You gon' have to pay. But wait, jugging on the main stage with the mainframe. Loosen up your face, baby. Sometimes I need a vacate, meditate, hydrate, protect my energy before engagement.
The Packers are now on the clock.
You're labeled impatient. But once the boss made it, you're labeled amazing.
The Chiefs are now on the clock.
Such a force of nature. I don't want to seem absurd, but that boy's a gangster. Focusing on me, way from Tel Aviv. Barbados with the hustle pockets, LIDs. Distinctive destinations, all I want to see. Oceanfront residences, 3 different ones a week.
The Falcons are now on the clock.
It's time to learn that. Mess around and put that thing up where you're permanent.
The Panthers are now on the clock.
Every year, yeah, I earn that. At the front of this line is where my turn at.
Sometimes you need a friend, not the ones that just